Thank you so much for everybody for coming. This is a matter of great interest to all of our community, and I'm very happy to have everybody here. As we do at all of our city council meetings, we're going to start. We will not have a general public comment tonight because this is a special meeting, so all public comments will be related directly to the public, to the subject at hand. But we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We don't have a flag in this room, but there is one over there at the star, right? So we can face this direction, and we'll go there. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. I want to thank all the members of council for being here. Councilmember Amy Harrington, Vice Mayor Rachel Hundley, Councilmember Madeline Agramonte, and David Cook. Also, the county is represented here. We have Supervisor Susan Gorin, and also some state representatives. We have Logan Pitts from Senator Bill Dodd's office, and Melissa Ayupa. I apologize. From Assembly Member Levine's office, and Rebecca Hermosia is here from Congressman Mike Thompson's office. This is a matter that's of great concern and of great interest to our entire community. I know that there are a lot of tensions that have come from this. There are a lot of emotions and feelings here. I really hope that as we go through this conversation, we can make sure that we remain civil, that we respect each other's opinions. Everybody has a right to speak, and everybody has a right to be a member of this community and express the way that they want their community to be represented. The purpose of this meeting, the reason we've called this meeting, is because we want to hear from you. We had a major incident here in the city of Sonoma, and we have had some ongoing incidents going on in the city as well. But we also have a deep desire as a community to care for the less advantaged members of our community, and I think we need to hear from you about how we're going to move forward together. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. So we're going to listen to the community. We're going to share some information, some history of the SOS, the Sonoma Overnight Support, what's going on with the county, general kind of facts and stats around homelessness, the scope of the problem, and the myriad of macro issues that come into place here. The affordable housing issue, the low wage issue. There's so many issues that touch this. And also, we're going to hear from our police chief as well. So we want to share information so everybody understands what's going on, what the context is, and what our opportunities are, how we can grow and move forward as a community. And then finally, we're going to hear from you, and we will hear from the council. I do want to make it clear that the council cannot take specific action tonight. This is kind of a listening session. We can provide direction to staff. So we will have a discussion as a member of your city council. We will give some direction to staff, and at our next meeting, that's when action would be taken on any item. So there we go. Again, I just want to make sure everybody remains respectful to everybody. If you're going to make public comment tonight, please address the council. Don't turn around and address the audience. Please address the council. Please, no personal insults, and no clapping or booing about any comments. If you agree with something, we do like a little hand wiggle or raise your hand is totally fine. And with that, we'll move forward. So the agenda from tonight, we're going to hear presentations and information from the city manager, our city attorney, and our police chief. We're going to hear from the Sonoma County, and we're going to hear from Kathy King of Sonoma Overnight Support. We'll do a quick round of council questions. I'd ask that council, just in the interest of time, try to keep themselves to 1 to 2 questions as much as you can. And then we're going to go to public comment. So with that, and then finally we'll do council direction and move from there. So we're going to turn it over to City Manager Kathy Capriola to move us forward.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey, members of the council, members of the community. Thank you for being here tonight. So if I could we're going to turn down the lights just a little bit because it's a little hard to see. And hopefully this will make the slides a little clearer for all of you. So if Erica will turn to the next slide. So the first set here, we're going to provide you some context and background. So a little bit of history, and I've been manager for 3 years, so there's probably folks in this room that have a lot more history on this topic and can provide some of that. But my understanding is there was informal food and housing provided to the homeless by the community for a period of time before 2003, 2004. And about that point, there was the need for a permanent facility was identified, and a partnership was created between the city and Sonoma Overnight Support, which is a local 501c3 that was started originally, as I understand, to provide food services. So there was a use permit that was approved by the Planning Commission in 2004. That existed for about a year. It was not exercised, wasn't used. My understanding, there was a decision to come back and kind of refine it. So it was updated in 2005. Also in 2005, there was a contract between the city and what used to be the city's redevelopment agency. And with that, there is funding that comes to Sonoma Overnight Support to assist with homeless services. Originally, it was about $15,000 a year, and currently it's $30,000 a year for about another 10 years. And then the city, in partnership with SOS, also applied for a grant with the state of California for about $280,000, and that is what created the 4-bedroom modular facility, which is our homeless shelter, homeless services location. It's called The Haven, located next to the police department. If we could turn to the next slide. So a little more recent history. At some time period, SOS began providing kind of food and showers and services to general homeless clients. And then in 2018, there was kind of a shift. Obviously, homelessness has become a much bigger issue overall in the state, and the county was looking at models of what really works effectively. And so there was a shift to what's called housing first, where you try to get people in housing, stabilized, and then you can provide the services. And that meant that you either had to have shelter with low barriers, and that you really needed to take a broader spectrum. And at that point, the Sonoma Overnight Support felt like they couldn't take some of the funding from the county because the facility was too small, and they screened their clients more actively than the low barrier model allowed. So they didn't take funding for a year. The city provided $20,000 in one-time funding, and the SOS did additional fundraising. And then the SOS board looked at strategic options. There was a council subcommittee made up of Councilmember Hunley and Councilmember Agramonte who worked on some of these issues as well. And about the same time, there was new funding called the Homeless Emergency Aid Program that came from the state to all counties in California. And in addition, Supervisor Gorn was able to find some general fund dollars, about $250,000, that came to the Valley. And this is the first time, other than this programs offered by SOS, that we've had really a large amount of outside dollars to try to provide services for the homeless. So in then in 2019, SOS kind of retained 4 of their beds, but they started to operate more as a navigation center in coordination with other nonprofit service providers with the goal of getting homeless directly in services. And through the years, there's been very strong working relationship and collaboration with SOS, city staff, and the police department. This next chart will be hard to see, and we will post this PowerPoint on our website tomorrow for anyone who wants to look. But this just shows some of the different nonprofits that are now assisting with homeless services in the Valley. And there's about $815,000. And there is both coordinated entry, there's rapid rehousing, there's trying to match seniors with homeless, and a variety of other things. In addition, the city received about $245,000 to do some physical upgrades to the Haven itself. The next chart shows what's called a point in time. And as you can appreciate, when you're trying to count the homeless and understand the size of the problem, it's not easy to do. And so once a year, usually in January, the county does a count, and they go out and physically try to locate and count the homeless. So, and the homeless are put in two kind of buckets. There's folks that are unsheltered and folks that are sheltered, people that may be, sharing a home with someone or that type of thing. So the yellow highlight there, you can see in 2017 within the city of Sonoma, there was a total of 91. Again, this is at one point in time, 1 day count. I would call it a rough estimate. So there were 91 homeless overall in the city, 30 in 2018, and 50 in 2019. The 2020 count was supposed to be done in January, and it will be happening soon, but it is not, so there's not a current year, and it's going to be updated. And then you can see in the valley as a whole, it was 189, then a 101, then 141. Again, a rough estimate. And Kathy King will talk from Sonoma Overnight Support. She's the executive director. She'll talk a little more, but they are definitely seeing about a 74% increase, 60-70% increase in clients over the last year. Next slide, please. So in a number of years ago in 2016, there was an experiment with the safe parking program that after a couple months decided not to move forward. But in November 2018, there was an exploration to look at whether to do a safe parking again. A safe parking basically is a way to allow people to park in a location, those people that basically are living out of their cars. And we'll talk about a little more and give you some context about legally what can be done with people living in their cars and what we can't do and kind of what the situation is legally for those folks. So the council voted at the end of November to put in place 10 parking spaces that are located at the police parking lot. And those spaces were for folks that were homeless living in their cars. They can be there from 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. And the kind of informal agreement was then when day services open at the Haven from 9 to 1, they could be in those services. And then the vision was that they would be leaving and would come back again that night. There are a set of rules and guidelines, and the SOS has an ability to, if folks are violating those rules and guidelines, not only can they be exited from the safe parking program, they can also be exited from providing day services that SOS provides as well. Part of the requirements is SOS does pay for a security guard that patrols 3 to 4 times a night, in addition to police going through and monitoring. There are higher barriers in terms of screening people to participate. And the council asked for a 3-month update, which was going to come forward in early March, and then a 6-month formal report. And so I think that is kind of a brief update about this overnight program, safe parking program. Next slide. So as folks are aware, next to the police department and next to Sonoma Overnight Support, the Haven, is the Sonoma Valley Field of Dreams. So this was a community nonprofit that was established in 1992. This was a community project and a collaboration and a vision of providing basically play areas and turf field for the benefit of young people. It's a 7-acre park, and the city owns the land. We have a 55-year agreement with the nonprofit, and they maintain and manage those facilities. It's an all-volunteer board. That board is in transition, but there's a lot of good work that occurs there as well. And this last year, the city provided $10,000 to the Field of Dreams as part of one of our recreation partners. So this is a list of some of the user groups. I know that's kind of hard to see, so I will read them, and my apologies for the way the screen is coming through. Sonoma Valley Girls Softball, Sonoma Revolution Softball, Stack Youth Baseball, Sonoma Valley High School Junior Varsity Baseball, the Rebel or REBL Adult Baseball, Sonoma Valley Babe Ruth, Sonoma Stompers, Challenger Sports, and North Bay Baseball. Somewhere between maybe 300 to 400 direct users, but over 1,000 folks that are participating in different ways. Next slide, please. So we will talk more about this, but I think it's important, some big context, looking at homelessness and where we are. This is super complicated. I just came from a conference with city managers across California, and this is probably one of the #1 issues we talked about. Looking at models, it's tough, and we're gonna tell you some of the constraints we have, and we'll talk to you about a recent court case called Martin v. Boise. There are civil rights of homeless individuals. There are high costs, both short-term and long-term. And there are unintended consequences. It's kind of like a balloon. You push one place, and other things that can happen, and maybe what you thought was going to happen wasn't going to happen. So there's this constant kind of evaluation that needs to occur. There are a variety of services and needs that we have overall and everywhere in California, from more mental health services, drug and alcohol. There's the cost of housing, the lack of transitional permanent housing, and there's also some changes have occurred with Prop 47, which the voters approved, which changed various felonies to misdemeanors. So it is complicated. With that, I'm going to turn and like to introduce John Abachi, if John would raise his hand, because I know it's in the dark, it's hard to see. John is our Assistant City Attorney, and he's going to just provide a brief background about some of the legal constraints that we have.
I'm going to provide a brief summary of a recent case that many of you may have heard of. It is a case that was decided by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, which is the federal Court of Appeal that has jurisdiction over California and the rest of the western states, so it is a decision that applies to the city of Sonoma. And it was a decision called Martin versus Boise. In that case, it was the city of Boise, Idaho. It had 3 homeless shelters. There were 6 plaintiffs, which are the parties who sue, who had been convicted of violating the unlawful camping ordinance for the city over the course of 3 years. And those plaintiffs filed suit against the city to prevent the enforcement of the ordinance at all future times. An unlawful camping ordinance is an ordinance as common to cities. They have been adopted for years. They prohibit the occupying, camping, or lodging on public property, and such places as streets, sidewalks, or parks. Violations of unlawful camping ordinances are criminal offenses, and that was important to the court's decision. The court said, essentially, the question before it was whether the enforcement of a criminal statute prohibiting sleeping outside against homeless individuals with no access to alternative shelter was unconstitutional. And the court found that it was unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court let that ruling stand. So as a result, cities cannot criminally prosecute no camping ordinances against individuals if they cannot obtain shelter. The implications for Sonoma is that Sonoma cannot enforce its anti-camping ordinance unless there are shelter beds available for individuals who are in violation of the ordinance at that time, and the individual actually refuses any available shelter. Future cases will decide whether the decision will have any other implications for cities, but this is the import of that decision at this time, and it does affect each and every city in California, and each and every city is grappling with the consequences of the ruling.
Thank you, John. Now I'd like to introduce Orlando Rodriguez. Orlando, if you can also raise your hand for folks. Orlando's right here. He's our chief of police. And just for context, I think most folks are aware, we contract with Sonoma County Sheriff's Department to provide our law enforcement services. And so Orlando is our chief of police and also the lieutenant within the department. He was also one of the first officers that came to serve the city and worked here before he was a chief for a number of years, so has got a good depth of town. So with that, I'll turn it to Chief Rodriguez.
Thank you, Kathy. Also want to thank the mayor, city council members, and Supervisor Gorn for being here, and all the members of our community for being here today and taking a special interest in this case. I know it affects everybody in our community. As all of you might be aware, we've recently had two cases such as this, one in the valley, which was that did affect our community a bit, and then this one hit a little bit closer to Sonoma. And I just want to acknowledge both survivors. Actually, there was 3, and commend them for their bravery in coming forward and reporting this to the police department. As you know, on Thursday, I believe it was January 29th, the suspect who happened to be in the bike path ended up attacking a teenager as she was walking down the bike path. She immediately, after the assault, she immediately came to police and reported it to us. we immediately send out deputies to go look for the subject, the description she was giving us. Obviously, she was a little bit traumatic, which you expect. And we did stop somebody, but it wasn't the subject that we were looking for. A couple days later, when we were doing some follow-up, she ended up calling us and saying that she thought that the suspect was at the park, at the Fields of Dreams. So our deputies immediately responded out there. They met with the victim, and she positively identified the suspect, which he was detained and arrested. This case was sent to the DA's office. He was arrested. There was a $31,000 bail. He's had court a few days later, and his bail was reduced to $20,000. And the charge of attempt rape was basically changed to sexual assault. So now he's facing sexual assault count, 2 counts of battery, and a count of indecent exposure. As we move forward with this, I want to talk a little bit about the, why we're here, the homelessness issue, and I think you pointed something out here. Oh yeah, well, I just want to say that yes, he does have a court date, if anybody's interested, of February 13th, 2020 of this year in courtroom 6 for a possible disposition. That don't know what that means. As far as we knew at the time when this occurred, he was not part of the safe parking program, and the day services and winter shelter had exited him the day after the attack. So I believe they weren't aware that he had committed this when they exited him. Because we went public on this till Tuesday, so it was already a couple days after the assault. Now I can talk a little bit about the public safety and the homelessness. As John mentioned, that decriminalization of homelessness individuals can use parks and public places just like others. So, when they're out in the park, we can't target them just because they're homeless. Private parking lot, we can enforce certain parking violations if it's properly signed. Public parking lot rules, city council can determine regulations which we can enforce. We can enforce a 72-hour parking limit in a public street, of course they're going to move around. And then parks and open spaces, can't enforce the no camping unless shelter opportunities provided or they refuse services. Now, on the next slide, you'll see that we have, we did incidents that occurred. First of all, the incidents that were reported at the Haven through years, and then incidents that occurred at the Fields of Dreams. So if you can see that 2014, there were 12 incidents that were reported at the Haven and 6 at the Fields of Dreams, and it goes on to 2015, 16, 2017, and 2018. And last year, there was 28 incidents that occurred at the Haven and 21 at the Fields of Dreams. These were responses. Somebody called into the police department to respond, for us to respond to some type of activity, a crime, found property, or something that caused us to respond there. And as you can see on the third one, where it says, on the third row, it says reports. Out of those, like in 2019, for example, there's 28 incidents at the Haven, 21 at the Fields of Dreams. Out of both, if you add those, out of both of them, we took 7 reports. Those 7 reports could have been somebody found the bike, or there was a fight, or there was an assault, things like that. Now, in 2016, the Sheriff's Department took it upon itself to start tracking how many times we responded to homeless-related issues. So if we were dealing with the homeless issue, we wanted to start document to see how much time we're spending, our resources, on homeless issues. So as you can see, in 2016, it was 47, but I think part of that is the education of our deputies to start tracking it. So if they go out with a homeless issue or a problem that has to do with a homeless person, we have a special button in our computer to track it that it was a homeless-related issue. So as you can see, 2016 and 2017 were kind of low, and I think that's just part of the education. And 2018 is more accurate of how much we've been dealing with homelessness in 2018 and 2019 of 111. So as you see, that's just not just at the Haven, this is citywide. So in 2018, we dealt with 115 homeless-related issues citywide. And in 2019, we dealt with 111 homeless-related issues in 2011. Now, what is it that the police department can do? Well, what we can do is we are continuously working with SOS, and we just had a meeting with the Fields of Dreams personnel, and we're going to work with them. We've had a good relationship with Kathy King and SOS, and we're going to continue that. We're going to start extra patrols, and we've been doing extra patrols throughout the days, and we can monitor the parking lot, but we can't monitor it 24/7. We can respond to conflicts, obviously, respond to crimes in progress, and solve crimes. We can investigate suspicious people or vehicles, and we can enforce parking or traffic violations. The things that we can't do is eject people from the park without cause or a commission of a crime or a disturbance. Enforce civil agreements or disagreements. Parking disputes. We can't, if somebody's parked there for 2 hours and somebody's saying that they've been there all day, we can maybe mark a car, but you have to understand that if somebody moves that car and parks it in a different stall, it starts the process all over. And we can't provide 24/7 security, right? Because we have a limited amount of deputies that are working and they're responding to calls for service throughout the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Rodriguez. Next, I'd like to introduce Barbie Robinson. And Barbie, if you could raise your hand. So Barbie is the Executive Director of the Sonoma County Department of Health Services, and she's also the Interim Executive Director of the Community Development Commission. So appreciate Barbie being here. And we asked Barbie to provide kind of an overall context of the issue and talk about some of the things that Sonoma County is doing on homelessness.
Good evening. So I just want to start first, sorry I'm a little short for the mic, start first with just providing some context for homelessness in general. California accounts for approximately 48% of the homeless population in the country. So when you put that in context, for what we're grappling with, it is a problem, a systemic problem statewide. And then here in Sonoma County, we have approximately 3,000 individuals who are experiencing homelessness, with almost 1,000 of those individuals precariously housed. And what we mean by precariously housed is they may be couch surfing or staying at a friend's house, sleeping on the floor. And then approximately 2,000 individuals who are unsheltered. Homelessness is a dynamic and complex issue, and it impacts individuals across the spectrum. They're veterans, they're fathers, mothers, children, elderly individuals who are experiencing homelessness, individuals who are experiencing homelessness due to economic insecurity, individuals experiencing homelessness due to trauma, challenges with substance use or mental health challenges. And so I think it's important as we walk through the data and have this discussion tonight that we humanize the individuals that we are talking about, and not necessarily saying that we condone the behavior, but we think more broadly about who the homeless are. And it's important to understand that in terms of our last point in time count, most individuals, 87% of the individuals experiencing homelessness are from Sonoma County. 70% of individuals indicate that they have lived in the county for 10 years or more. And 89% of them, 90% of them basically say they want to have permanent supportive housing. And so when we think about the contributory factors for homelessness in Sonoma County, we have a housing shortage that has been exacerbated by the complex fires of 2017. And there's an array of different housing options that people need. And the sheltering system is often a gateway for people to come into the housing system. And so It's important that, you know, we understand that it's not a build it and they will come. It's build it and wrap around services and supports in the community, and people will thrive in housing. And so it's the system is, you know, includes sheltering, and then getting people into permanent supportive housing where we're supporting them with, getting general assistance or food assistance, mental health services, substance use supports, and ultimately the goal is to get them into affordable housing and if we can, into home ownership. And so I wanted to share that background in terms of who we're talking about relative to the homeless population in Sonoma County. The next slide, please. And so in late December, the Board of Supervisors took bold step to really infuse investment in dollars and strategy around trying to address homelessness in Sonoma County. On December 17th, the Board of Supervisors declared an emergency with respect to the largest encampment that the county has ever experienced on the Joe Rodota Trail. And they directed staff across departments to take action to not only clear the trail, but to also stand up interventions and strategies to support getting people into the sheltering system and ultimately into permanent supportive housing. And so the board approved direction to purchase multi-unit homes and place individuals who are ready to be successful in permanent supportive housing into those homes. They approved standing up 2 indoor-outdoor shelters, and that is a model that is in place across the United States, recognizing that meeting people where they are and housing first is some people aren't necessarily ready at the outset to come into housing. And so we want to meet them where they are and stand up these indoor-outdoor shelters, which has an array of services and supports to help facilitate getting them ready to come into housing. The board also approved master leasing, which is an arrangement that allows us to enter into contracts with landlords to place individuals into single occupancy rooms or apartments. And then, of course, an emergency action to stand up the Los Guilacos villages, which currently is home to 60 individuals who were occupying the trail. And so I know it sounds like there's a lot of emphasis on the trail, and what we know about the homeless population is that they are a transient population. If you put a different color sticker on homeless individuals, and for each jurisdiction that they've resided in, they perhaps would reflect the rainbow. And so when we think about homeless individuals and where they live, they've lived throughout the county. And so while this response may look like it was around the JRT, it's really around addressing homeless individuals throughout the entire county. And then lastly, we've talked about the Boise case, which has implications for how we address or respond to homeless individuals in the county. They are also residents, but we also, the city of Santa Rosa and the county are currently under an injunction and under a settlement that requires that we offer individuals, we offer them an assessment and services and resources to come into the system of care before taking any enforcement action. The exception to that is if what happened on the JRT, if encampments or the way that homeless individuals are living will cause a threat to public health or create an environmental hazard, then we can take action to close down an encampment or move homeless individuals out of the current living situation. And with that, Kathy, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. And then with the pleasure of the mayor, I think our last presentation is by Sonoma Overnight Support. And so I think there's one slide here, but at this point I'd like to invite Reverend Dr. Curran Reichert, who's the president of the SOS Board of Directors, and Kathy King, who's the executive director of SOS, to come up to the podium and address the council. And this slide is almost impossible to see, so I think at this point, let's turn the lights back up and we will stop with the slideshow. And thank you for your patience on that. So again, Reverend Dr. Curran Reichert and Kathy King, thank you.
Good Snohomish Valley Interfaith Ministerial Association. A few years back, I heard author and activist Brian Stevenson give a presentation to a group of concerned citizens, not unlike this evening's gathering. He had two things to say, and they stayed with me. The first was a quote from Fyodor Dostoevsky. A society should not be judged by how it treats its outstanding citizens, but by how it treats its criminals, and how it treats the most vulnerable among us. The second was that we care about issues, and if we care about issues, we must get proximate to those issues. That means not standing outside of the issue, but becoming deeply engaged with the issue in order to create solutions. Homelessness and its attendant consequences are one of the issues I've spent the last decade of my life getting proximate to. As many of you have discovered, I have learned that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. People without permanent shelter, as Ms. Robinson indicated, are as diverse a group as any other. And the trustworthiness or lack of trustworthiness cannot be based on the behavior of a few individuals. What's clear is that homelessness here in the Valley has reached a boiling point. The problems are growing faster than our apparent ability to come up with solutions. Many of us are frustrated, many of us are scared, because we don't know exactly what to do to fix it. And if that issue is true for you and for me, a largely housed population, imagine how much truer it is for homeless individuals themselves. I realize that no one is here tonight with the intention to demonize the homeless. Everyone is interested in creating a sustainable response to this mounting crisis. I suggest that in all areas of our discussion, we might be mindful not to create polarities. When we find ourselves describing what they did or what they do, it is a signal to us that we are creating chasms rather than bridges. There is no us and them. There is only we. Besides, boiling points are not necessarily bad things, for it is there that we often come up with our most creative solutions. I believe that the answers we seek can be found in gatherings like these, but only if we are able to create safe containers for people to have honest and heartfelt conversations, and only if the emphasis is on responding to the crisis rather than reacting to it. I appreciate your calling this gathering tonight together. It is a hope in my heart that with more conversations like this one tonight, we might be able to create a compassionate and thoughtful response for the most vulnerable in our community.
Thank you, Karen. I'm Mark Singh, and I've been the Executive Director at Sonoma My Support for the past 5 years. First of all, I want to thank you all for turning out tonight and sharing your concerns about the safety of our community, the safety of our children. There is a homeless crisis in Sonoma, and it's throughout the state of California and also across cities in the U.S. We are no longer spared from the homeless because they cannot pay their rent, or they cannot afford a house, or they've lost their job, or they've made bad decisions about drugs and alcohol, or they have mental illness. Homelessness is here. The staff and the board of SOS has been dealing with this for 13 years. With limited resources, we've been responding to the increasing needs. We've been adapting, we've been changing, and we've been trying to figure out what to do and to get the work done. We are not alone in this work. We have excellent professional staff, we have committed volunteer board, and we have members of the community that have stepped up and helped us. Enormous support from the churches, from individuals, from groups like the Soul Optimists, Women's Guild, Meals on Wheels, our community partners with La Luz, the Vintage House, and also the Health Center. We work together. I'm especially proud to be partners with the police chief. He's on speed dial with me, and we talk about the issues that we need to talk about. And the deputies have been nothing but supportive of the work that SOS does, but also their need to be firm with what's happening. I just want to talk about the programs that we've adapted and made so you'll understand what we're trying to do. And the first one is the Haven, the meals. They're from 9 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And when we first started, we had 54 people. And now we're up to 210 a year, a 74% increase. And we have tried every day, we serve between 40 to 45 people. 11% of those people are homeless. They're food deprived. They can't make ends meet at the end of the month. They come to us for the things that we offer. We offer food, but we also offer showers and facilities that they use. We served, and this number is kind of, I made, actually Dan helped me with this number, 87,884 services for the past 5 years. 48,643 meals, and that's at the Haven. We have emergency services for women and children. We'll put them up in a hotel and make sure that they're safe, and then try to deal with what's happening with them. We have a client fund that helps people get jobs because we can get them a driver's license or Social Security. We can pay for boots that they need to wear special for their jobs. We help the Orr family, and some of you know them. They were the fire victims twice. They came to us for food, for clothing. We were able to funnel some money for donations for them, for toys for their children. The community had a great outpour for them, and we were there for them, and we continue to help them. We also help people that come to us, and maybe they have medical problems. Some of the hospitals do let people go, and they come, and we help them move into a care facility. There are people that come here. You know, Sonoma's a great place. And so when they do come here, we ask them, where are you from? And what we do is say, you will not get services here. You can stay for a while. Where do you live? We're going to send you back. We pay for train tickets. We pay for bus tickets. We've moved 20 people back last year. They would still be living here and staying here if we didn't vet them. So when we move them on, then we feel like we serve Sonoma. That's what we want to do. 82% of the people that we serve are from Sonoma. We do an intake and we ask them questions. The food program provides food for over 30,000 meals last year. We serve it at La Luz at night. We serve it at the Springs on Wednesdays, a meal. And then St. Leo's the Brown Baggers make burritos, and they pass them out to 3 different areas in the Springs. The food program has 125 volunteers. We have $100,000 worth of in-kind food given to us and services a year. It's phenomenal. In the past year, just the food program, the past 5 years, $155,547 meals, not just at the Haven. We have other nonprofits that are helping us at the Haven. Interfaith Shelter Network and SHARE. We're vetting people. We're helping them get into shelters. We did 22 last year, but we haven't been able to move people along. We've tried other resources. That's why we tried to introduce safe parking at the City Council. It was approved on the 18th, and we put 10 people in front of the Haven. When we tracked the people that were living in their cars, it was an average of 32 people living in their cars. We're only taking 10 in front of the Haven. There was 37 of them after the power outages. So again, these people have nowhere to go, and we're trying to help them move on. The 10 people that are in the cars, of the 10 people that are in the cars, Half of them are over 60, and we asked them, where are you from? They say, I was born and raised in Sonoma. One man is 70 years old. He's living in his car, and he was born and raised here, has been here 50 years. This breaks my heart. We have staff people that go out to the parking lot every day. We have a security system 3 times a night. We have a porta potty, and we try to make it so that people can go out and find jobs. A fourth of the people living in the parking lot have part-time jobs. So, again, they will have a better chance to get a job if they come in, use our shower facilities, talk to the case manager, and be able to go and apply for a job. So the next one is the winter shelter I want to talk about. We've been doing that for 5 years, and that is at Sonoma Wise Church. They are the most generous, kind church. They give us everything free. They pay for that increase in utilities. People eat dinner at the Haven at 6 o'clock. They're transported out to the church at 7. There's no in and out of the church. They stay in the fellowship hall. And Pastor Rob is here tonight and some of his congregation. We're very grateful. Then they come back to the shelter for food during the day. So, Burns Taxi puts people in a van, and lots of times they have a lot of, you don't need to know this, but they have a lot of baggage. Sometimes it takes 2 days to get there. The county gives us money for that, and we have to have no barriers to anyone that can come in there. So we cannot screen them. Today we've had 50 people there, 862 bed nights. That's chronic homeless people stayed out of the cold. We probably will have 1,000 by the time that this program is over. It runs December 1st through March 31st. We cannot do this work alone. The community is very supportive, but we need more support from the county, and we need more support from the city. Homelessness crisis is complex, it's difficult, and we are not saying that we're not even pretending we can solve this problem. What we say is that we're doing the best we can with the limited resources we have, and we are using our ability to live out the mission of Sonoma Overnight Support, and that is to feed the hungry and shelter the homeless in Sonoma and Sonoma Valley. Thank you very much.
Remind the audience as we move into public comment and hear from more speakers, we're not doing clapping. Thank you very much, Kathy King, and Corinne for speaking. We'll go to, are we on to council member questions now? Great, thank you, I appreciate it. Questions from council? Amy.
2 quick points of clarification, maybe. One, on the slide showing the history of the Haven, it shows that it was open as a homeless support center, but actually it was for battered women and children, and that's what the use permit is for, correct?
Is her mic on? Is Amy's mic on? Can we make sure that?
Now? No.
Here.
So that's a question. When I read the use permit, it appeared that it was originally a shelter for battered women with services allowable at night, but it was described as opened as a homeless service center. So it's a question to the city manager, which is correct?
So I'm going to ask David Storr, our planning director. He's got the documents in front of him to speak directly to that. David, do you need a minute, or do you have the information?
I have it. The application was provided to the City Planning Commission, and it was an application for a use permit to allow for the development of a 3-unit emergency shelter facility with manager's quarters. And that's what was reviewed and approved.
And my second and last question is, I'm just wondering about the presentation tonight, because I didn't know who the speakers were, but it seems odd to me that no one from the Field of Dreams who maintains it, or any of the parents or any of the sports groups, were also given a chance to present their concerns. And I think just a reminder, folks, no clapping. And I just think the presentations given by SOS were helpful, and the background was also helpful, but we have a lot of parents here and it's getting really late, and I would have liked to see them have a chance to give an organized presentation.
So, Councilmember Harrington, we have met at least twice, if not 3 times, with Field of Dreams, different subgroups of that board of directors in the last week. And there is some leadership transition that's occurring. And so I am seeing Richard Goetzen walk up. So I don't know if the council would like to hear from Richard, who, Richard, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Richard Goetzen, and I've been the president of the Field of Dreams for the last 4 years. I've worked at the Field of Dreams for 14 years, kind of transitioning from a soccer coach. They needed a president, and I took the administrative spot. I haven't done too much hands-on grass pulling, weed whacking at the Field of Dreams. It's more or less communication with the city. But I want to first acknowledge the city and thank them for their financial assistance this year. We've been in the black for the last, the red for the last few years, and the semi-annual $5,000 assistance is greatly needed. I also want to acknowledge Captain King's amazing work, and what she does with her budget is outstanding. We are not her adversary at the Field of Dreams, but we do believe that the Haven House chose the wrong location from the very beginning, and back in 2007 protested such. A few years ago, we had a idea that they were going to have parking out there. It started, it didn't last, and of course the reincarnation of that is the safe parking program. Now I'm, again, limited at the Field of Dreams. I live in Glen Allen. Our field manager, Fred Fagan, one of my best friends, is out there almost on a daily basis. And indeed there are many people, as diverse as we are, at the Haven House, homeless, in the parking lot, and also in the woods around the Field of Dreams. The individual who is 70 years old and resident of Sonoma, or born in Sonoma, is not the issue to our youth who are practicing out there on a regular basis. It's a small percentage of people who are obnoxious, law-breaking, don't use the toilets. Whether it's them or not, the vandalism is increased exponentially. People, young people often, sleeping in sleeping bags in front of the restrooms, being verbal abusive to coaches, to our staff. It's frustrating. That's one of the reasons that I am dropping my position after 12 years. It's no longer fun at the Field of Dreams. I think that we have this problem. People in their cars need a place to stay, and I would suggest that it's on 8th Street East in our our public works facility. But the enforcement is a tough issue. But there are people out there, they line these parking spots 1 curb away from the field. Their lounge chairs are out there, their dogs are out there, they smoke, not all of them, there is smoking, and a small percentage are verbally abusive and are the ones that are steering away families from wanting to drop their 7, 8, 10, 12, 15-year-old daughters and sons off at the Field of Dreams.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Councilmember Agramonte, you had some questions?
No, yeah, but I don't think that at this time I'm going to ask them. I'll just ask one, I guess, as long. Thank you, I appreciate it. Could you, City Manager, explain to the lower barrier and what that did to our shelter? And also, it says here on page 4 that the Haven refused to accept that. Would you explain what that all means?
I'll do the best I can, and then maybe either Barbie Robinson might be able to add in or Kathy King. But as I understand it, basically, again, the shelter, the Haven itself is a very small facility. I want to say it's maybe 1,500 square feet. And the shelter that was and the people that were staying there, it is very tight, 4 people in a 10 by 10 room. So the low barrier regulations of the county and the Housing First mean that someone could walk, someone would need to participate, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like they might have an active drug problem or might have an active drinking problem. And I'm looking to other experts, this is not me. And if you're taking some of this funding, you have to have a low barrier, which means all those folks are in one space. What SOS has done over the years is they have raised private money, and again, before the federal rules changed, they would screen folks, and they would take this person but not this person, and people were kind of more local, and so the issue, what's occurred now in terms of just the way the funding works, there's this lower barrier, and you need to accept a broader group, which is why the SOS board said this space doesn't work to be an emergency shelter if we have to take everyone. It doesn't work. So that's why they rejected funding first time. The city backfilled part of that. They fundraised for the other part of it. And then they looked at, well, maybe we need to, and they also had people, I think the other piece, they also looked at what should we be doing here. And the bottom line is, in the shelter, people were coming and they didn't have anywhere else to go. So they're staying for 6 months. And so the system of being an emergency shelter and moving people along wasn't working as well either, if I remember right. So part of the issue was then looking at maybe what we need to do is really embrace the Housing First, connect people with services, and try a different way. And I think so just trying to figure out as things are evolving, is there a different way to do those services? That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Do we need any clarification from the county, or does that sound? Okay, good. Councilmember Cook, questions?
Yeah, I guess my big question right now is what kind of security do we have at the Haven? If it could, maybe Nancy could answer it, or the police chief.
Kathy. So Kathy, I'll answer, and Kathy, you can tell me if it's wrong. My understanding, there's a security firm that, if you want to take that over, that'd be great.
We have a security firm that patrols the parking lot 3 times during the evening. We have a staff person that goes to the parking lot every morning. And then we also have cameras in the front, the side, and inside the Haven. And then we have staff that regularly go out to the parking lot and to the field. We've responded to Fred from Field of Dreams. If he had an issue, our staff person goes and asks someone to be removed. So we were proactive with Fred if he had any issues on the field. We're trying to be good neighbors. We got extra gallon garbage dumps, put the dumpster back in. So the security is the security firm, our staff, and cameras.
So if you wanted help from the city of Sonoma, would you want additional security at that site?
If people felt safer, I'd be open to have security, yes.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Hundley, questions? No questions for Vice Mayor Hundley? Great. I do have a question for Chief Orlando. A couple of people have expressed a desire to have a police officer kind of on site on a more regular basis. Is that something that you could accommodate, or would that be an additional stress for you?
Well, that would require additional personnel. And like I said, we can do our patrols on routine basis whenever we're available. And from talking to Kathy, I've talked to the day shift deputies to, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock to just make a regular patrol through there to make sure when they're out there cutting the fields or, doing stuff with the grass, that if people are just laying out there not conforming to the rules, that you need to leave, especially when you see people working around the area. Our deputies will escort these people out. Also, that's, of course, if calls allow, calls for service. Yeah. So it all depends on that. Also, in the evening hours, I've talked to Fields of Dreams. I think it was Charles, or I can't remember his first name now. But he's going to provide us with the schedule of the dates that they practice and the days of the games. So that's going to be posted in our patrol briefing room, and that way deputies can make regular patrols. And I think that again will hopefully reduce some of the problems and concerns that people have.
Great. Another thing that's been brought up by members of the community is a desire to have signage stating the rules. and you know, making sure that people are aware of them. How quickly could we get something like that in place?
So there are signs going up that say no overnight parking except by permit, and those will be installed over the next couple of days. So that was in conjunction with the safe parking program. In terms of other signs, we could get some other smaller signs done quickly and then replace them with something more stable that says, you know, no smoking, because there is no smoking in any public park. I actually will need to look, because one of the unique things about Sonoma is you can drink in our parks. And so it is one of the lovely things, but there's also the other side of that. So now we could look at, the council can regulate that. They could decide that there's no drinking in the Field of Dreams. We could pass that ordinance, and that's something that could be done. And you could treat the Field of Dreams as a youth facility different than you do the Plaza or Depot. But right now, I believe, and I don't have our muni code in front of us, but I believe that you can drink in any public park.
Great. Okay. Will we move into public comment? How many individuals or members of the audience would like to make a public comment? Okay, good. So we'll probably go, I guess we'll go 2 minutes for public comment. If you hear something that you appreciate or agree with, again, please no clapping. We're going to raise hands. Before we move to public comment, I do just want to say, you know, in preparation for this meeting, I spoke with both parents and coaches, as well as members of our homeless advocacy community. What struck me was not how different we are, but how much both groups have in common. Every single parent or coach that I spoke to expressed a desire to care for and to provide services for our homeless community. And every single homeless advocate I spoke to expressed a strong desire that children feel safe and that our community feels safe. So I grew up here. I've played on the Field of Dreams. I personally know members of our homeless community and of our homeless advocacy community. This is personal to me, and this is personal to all of you, I'm sure, as well. I again ask you, please, as you move to public comment, remember that the vast majority of homeless are not criminals. These are our community members, and the homeless advocates care deeply about the safety of children. In addition, I would ask you to remind you that just because a member of the community has concerns about the safety of their children and the safety of the ball fields, it does not mean that they are against or do not care about the plight of our less fortunate community members. So I just again ask for respect. Please make your comments addressed to the council and not to members of the community. And let's focus on solutions that we can bring to bear and how we can come together to find a long-term solution rather than what divides us. So if you'd like to, we can.
Yep, that's right. Finish.
Yeah, well, we have a timer over here. Christina Tierney, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Go ahead and move towards the microphone that we have here and just form an orderly line. And
just one other thing to help you out with the time. To help you out with
Christina, would you move that one out so they could use that so we can have 2 lines?
We'll see if we can, maybe Bob can help with that. Christina, you sit. Bob can help with that, please.
Yeah, and
just
please, as you rise to the microphone, please state your name as well. So please state your name and then say your piece.
Just one other, Mayor Harvey, just for folks that are speaking, Christina, can you raise, there'll be a yellow card, they'll give you a 30-second warning.
So it faces us.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Yellow card means 30-second warning, red card means your time is done, you need to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that on?
Talk here, he's our expert.
Bob's got it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council and of the community. My name is Heather Christensen, CHRSTENSEN. I am a former homeless person. I was living at the Haven for 6 months with Kathy King. I could not have done anything without her support. I am now living in a shared home right now. I work, I have a job. She's given me so much support in everything that I have. I had a house for 15 years and I lost my house because of mold. I was homeless for 6 months. Kathy King took me, and so many women and men at the shelter at the Haven.
Please address the council. Thank you.
I'm almost done.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. Right now, I have a home to stay, and I could not have done it without Kathy. And do not close down this place. Keep it. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Heather. Over here. We got a second line forming over here, so we've got another mic. So if people want to move there too, and there we go. So we'll go this side. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Corey Norton, and I hate public speaking, so I wrote everything down because I didn't think I'd make it through this. I want to first say thank you for holding this meeting tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. I have now been a parent of the Sonoma Girls Softball Association for over 7 years now. My daughter participates in the Recreation League, and because of my inability to say no, the summer travel ball and the fall travel ball program. This past year, since last February, I have been down at the field 2 to 3 times a week, every single week, sometimes 4 to 5. While my daughter practiced, I would sit in the field and watch, or I'd sit in my car in the parking lot and work. While I did that, I would observe the chaos that was happening around me. As humans, we're all entitled to basic rights, but with those rights come the understanding that we all follow laws and behave in a way that society deems acceptable. If the laws are not followed, if behavior is not appropriate, there are consequences that follow. This is something everyone learns at an early age and is reinforced through school and through life. What I've witnessed at this field is pure disregard for the law, the environment, and other people. The people at this field have decided to leave their garbage everywhere, taunt the small children as they walk to the field. I lost my spot. Use needles, trash the bathrooms, dig through the garbage cans and not pick up the mess they left behind, allow their dogs to run free off leash, hit golf balls in a direction of children that are practicing, deal drugs in the parking lot in plain view of the police station, smoke right next to the children's playing field. I could go on forever. When I went online, I found 26 city ordinance violations that occur frequently at the field.
You can hand that to the city clerk there.
And I have printed them out. The one I want to point out before I run out
So
of time.
please give it. Yeah, give it to the city clerk. So if you have documents to hand us, please hand it to the city clerk, and we'll pass
I'm
it.
going to point out the one on the top that I highlighted that states that the chief of police and his subordinates shall make sure that those ordinances are being done. And the word shall means they have to. So I'd love
Thank
to
you.
see a change.
Thank you, Corey. Don't clap. We're going to wiggle. We're not going to clap. I know it's annoying. We're trained to clap. Please learn to wiggle. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Havlick, and looking at the number of community members here, clearly there is a will to solve the problem as a community, where a lot of people would like to take in work when the current holds. I'm wondering if we have a map of time and place, problems and incidents, and a model to help community members train for difficult confrontations or situations where more people could help in a compassionate way. Is there a model that other cities have built that we can draw on for training community members to simply be? If there's a place that children are where there are uncomfortable incidents, and that's really it, looking at we are a compassionate community, and there are so many wonderful people here who want to be a part of the solution. Does that map exist?
Well, any questions that you have, we'll address after. So our city manager and city clerk are taking notes on your questions. We'll make sure to address any question that's asked after the public comment. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next. Oh, there we go. We got one here. Okay, we do have a line.
My name is Scott Brown. Frog in my throat. I think I have a unique view on this issue as one of the people you may see hanging out in class with some of these folks, or I do have friends. I use the showers at the Haven. I occasionally get food there. I'm a little dirty today. I've been down to put solar on the roofs of Grand Lake Theater in Oakland. So some of us have jobs and are decent people. I'm really happy to see so many people out here to defend young women and some of the young women brought along. I have two nieces that are athletes. One's about to go to college after her brother who's going to Ohio State for a volleyball scholarship. I grew up in an athletic family. I can appreciate what these people see here and that they are not pleased. There's a few unsavory elements out there. I know some of these schools, and I wouldn't want them drinking and smoking near my kids either. So I think having no drinking in the park is a great idea. They'll just have to learn to do it somewhere else, like Pfizer or somewhere else. The Haven is well used. We're going to find an NIMBY problem wherever we go. The main thing I want to get across tonight is I'm really happy that tonight we're talking about a system that worked. I came to this town from Petaluma before, and we know what happened in Petaluma with polycloths. Okay? So we have a system that works. We have young women who are trained to defend themselves, who know how to defend themselves. And if anything anybody wants to do, and they have a young woman teacher to defend herself. Finally, I myself have been serving, studying, living with the homeless more in recent years, unfortunately, myself, for 30 years. I took one of the first accredited college courses at Stanford University on the issue of homelessness. I have a degree from there, thanks to be from a generous, I'm going to wrap this up quick, advisor.
Thank you, Scott.
And SRJC.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm wearing my friend Gavin's jacket tonight. Gavin did hospice in my place.
Thank you, Scott. Scott, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments. We have a lot of people here.
I'm personally focused on case management. I'm meeting next Wednesday or soon Wednesday after.
Scott, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments. We have a lot of people here that all want to speak.
There's a group called Downtown Street Teams. You can see them working in Santa Fe. They put a rebranding on homelessness. I'd like to see that brought.
Scott. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Harvey, members of the council. My name is Joey. I was born and raised in Sonoma. I live on Walker Road across from the Sonoma Lutheran Church with my husband and my adolescent daughter. This subject is very personal to me because in the days prior to the assault on the bike path, the suspect, Ruben Reyes Garbo, was part of the SOS off-site winter shelter program and did stay at the Sonoma Alliance Church. My daughter and I had our own encounters with him. I watched him on more than one occasion as he split from the church group gathered at the back of the hall and quickly walked to the edge of the property directly across from my driveway. He did this on more than one occasion. When I walked my daughter to the car, he watched. When I closed the door, he walked away. This happened on 3 separate occasions. The first time, I thought this was very odd behavior, so I took notice. The second time, I stared him down and I took his picture. And on the third time, I took his picture and I called the SOS program. They did not call me back for 4 days. By the time I had the opportunity to speak with Kathy King, the news of the bike path assault was in the papers, and the mugshot confirmed the person watching my child on 3 separate occasions was in fact the same person being charged for sexual assault of a young girl. My concerns as a resident of Wawa and of a member of this community are the same as they were over a year ago when I and several neighbors met with Susie Gore and Kathy King and the deacon of the Sonoma Alliance Church. For SOS to receive county funding, they are required to take anyone into their program. Participants are not required to have any kind of history check for mental health, criminal activity, including sexual offenses, to be in the program. This means that they are also not registered to any address and cannot be tracked on Megan's Law or any official websites.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is John Gates. That's my wife. The Sonoma Alliance Church, the SOS program, they both lied to us. They lied straight to our faces. Every night, they drop off 11 unscreened people across the street from me. Where's the accountability? 11 unscreened people. One of them was a rapist. They put my wife in danger. They put my child in danger. 11 unscreened people. No security. They hire people off of Craigslist to watch these people. That's all. Where's the accountability? 11 unscreened people every night dropped off across the street from my house.
I'm Rebecca DeLorfit. I think we can all agree that the homeless situation in our town is an issue we all need to hold together and work on. I believe the original idea of the Haven Shelter was a noble one. However, our homeless situation has clearly outgrown that facility. For the safety of our children, adults, elderly, and the health of our town, I think it's time to rethink and relocate this resource. The bike path is a public resource meant for travel, exercise, and fosters the well-being of our community. The bike path in Arnold Field is an asset to our town, a cherished asset. We should protect the well-being of our town. We should be able to utilize these public resources free of people attempting to rape, act as a nuisance, and perform illegal activities. Our children should be able to ride the bike path and go to Arnold Field without any concern at all. It is not illegal to be homeless. Unfortunately, a lot of homeless people suffer from mental illness and substance abuse issues. This combination often leads to poor decision making. Facts we know about homeless: 26% of homeless adults have mental illness. 38% of homeless adults suffer from substance abuse. The rate of nonviolent crime is 27 times higher in the homeless population. The rate of violent crime is 40 times higher in the homeless population. Some local recent examples include the attempted rape, sexual battery, and indecent exposure, people openly using drugs in the parking lot and the ball field, setting fire in Montini Park. These things are very illegal. I'm urging the City Council to find a better, more well-suited location to serve the homeless and protect our community, our treasured youth, our adults, our elderly, our business.
Thank you for your comments.
Our friends at the dog park, and our community.
Thank you for your comments. Can you please say your names before you get up? I just had a request from a council member so that we can hear it and write it down. Thank you, I appreciate it.
My name is Timothy Neves. I live in Shelbyville. I have 3 children. You started this by saying you had an interest in it. If you had an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old that are at that park, I don't think those are the words you would have used. I've been watching you guys the whole time, and I've only seen one person up there that even looked a little concerned throughout this whole thing.
Jeez, that's not fair.
You guys made the policy, right?
Yeah,
actions have consequences.
Please don't insult me, that's not fair.
Actions have consequences. I believe it's my turn to talk. By making that policy, this is on you guys. Just if I was the mayor and I decided to give it a traffic lights and there was a collision, that would be on me. You guys, it's a bad policy from the start, and you've let it and pushed it further. There's been some incomplete information on Quincy vs. Martin by the city attorney. It is enforceable, okay, if there are shelter beds available. There's a new shelter right up the road in Oakmont that last I checked had available beds. It isn't just there. I was at the Overlook Trail just last week, on the ground, multiple broken bottles, condoms, tampons. I mean, it's getting way out of control, and it's not a boiling point. I can tell you from seeing other areas in this local Bay Area that this isn't the boiling point. If you continue this bad practice, it can and will get much worse. Our most vulnerable population is our children, not our homeless, and we should be protecting them. This is a homeless industrial complex statewide, okay? They don't necessarily want to solve the problem. They're using money. As the more services we put in this and the more money, the problem has gotten worse. A A lot of excuses up here, but no action. I told my 8-year-old, I was explaining to her what happened, because as a parent, I feel it's a responsible thing to do so they're prepared. And as I explained the circumstance of a homeless camp being at the girls' softball field, she looked at me after about 2 seconds on thinking it and said, "Dad, that's a horrible idea." So why don't you guys just kind of think on those few things?
Thank you for your comments, Timothy. Timothy.
My name is Guy Delorfus. I've been in Sonoma County since 1999. Moved to Sonoma 2.5 years ago because my wife and I love the community here. The community feel we want to raise our children here. Everyone seems to be in 2 divisive groups, and it really makes me sad. It seems to take away from the community feel that I've been so proud of to be a part of in the last 2.5 years. And it's just so divisive. My suggestion is that we all come together as a group with the man and women power here, all the brain power, money that's in this community. How come we can't do fundraising like we do for something else that is means so much less to all of us here? I just don't understand it. Our priorities are all messed up. So I want to thank you for your help. I think we could do a better job. If we could just have 10 more Kathy Kings, we'd be set. She can't do everything on her own. We need someone like Heather Christensen. Yeah!
Please address the council.
Who spoke first to be on, somehow included in these conversations. To have someone represent that group and knows more about it. Things I hope that we can address are just list a set of priorities. Funding, location, safety for our elderly, our adults, our children, our community, even the tourism. It's our lifeblood of this whole community. And maybe even thinking about how to teach us as parents, because I am a parent of 2 daughters, and teach our kids how to learn to protect themselves. Maybe a kid power unit. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Lori Nelson. Obviously, all of our hearts are broken. No community should go through this. We've gone through it a lot at the middle school. Last year it was at my house. I live in a duplex, and the man next door was arrested for that horrific rape of the Uber impersonators who brought the woman to Rose Diner. And when I wrote on that. It took me about a month to go into my backyard because the window had opened up into the yard. And so I know that feeling of being triggered. I know the feeling of looking for someone to attack. Obviously, we need to police that area. Obviously, the people there are a problem. But I think that what we need to do, more importantly, is solve it in a big way. 4 beds and parking spaces. That's crap. It's useless. And it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. It certainly isn't going to help. The police can't do a thing as long as we don't have beds to offer. So we need to talk about serious beds. We need to talk about changing the codes and code enforcement to make micro units available for people who do find themselves kicked out of their apartment because of lack of walls. And it's not something that we can't do. It's something that's very easy to do, and it's more than time. So thank you, and my heart's beating for every parent in this building.
Thank you, Lori.
My name is Ryan Olivier. I've lived in this valley all my life. I'm a father of 4 children, and I've coached youth sports for the last 10 years in this valley. I've coached hundreds of children, our children. And I got to tip my hat to Missy King and her staff for tapping into all kinds of resources and trying to help our less fortunate citizens of this community. But I don't think that the Haven is the problem. I do think that the parking spots, the 10 parking spots, in a parking lot of 40 parking spots in the police station parking lot, surrounded by ball fields where I believe the city manager said over 1,000 people use annually. That seems like we're turning our cheeks against our children, against our youth. I don't agree with that. I do appreciate the effort. I do appreciate the community coming together and trying to help the homeless issue, but I think the location is absolutely horrible. There are no laws in this parking lot, nowhere around the field. I can't drop off my children to practice. I can't show up to practice. I had to send out an email to my team to warn the parents to please don't just drop off your girls and let them walk from here to the end of the building to the field, because it's not safe. It's not the people that are utilizing these 10 parking spaces. It's the people that are using that as an excuse to loiter and do drugs and be less than wholesome in our community. And those are the people that are making our youth not feel safe.
Thank you for your comments, Ryan.
My name is Mary Evelyn Arnold. I have lived here in the Valley for 33 years. I was here when both the Field of Dreams and the Haven were built. There was discussion at the time of the location, and I believe it was generally agreed that the single safest place in Sonoma was next to the police department. I find it difficult to believe that there is a safer place. Certainly not as I've heard somebody say out on 8th Street. It is a moral wrong to condemn a group of individuals for the action of one. And we need to be very careful not to demonize this population.
Thank you.
My name is Todd. I'm from Shelville. I've been in Sonoma County for 4 years. Your homeless problem is not necessarily a problem as much as the criminal element of the homeless problem, where every homeless person has a right to some basic decency, human decency. Every taxpayer and registered voter in Sonoma has a right to not have their kids sexually assaulted at a baseball field. I think that the city council and law enforcement needs to do something about the criminal element in the homeless community, as well as the criminal element in our community.
Thank you, Todd.
My name is Maggie Murray, and I'm a realtor speaking from
You're doing fine. Megan Murray.
What I have read was among the guidelines city staff has recommended for the safe parking program are that preference be given to women and children, participants be cross-referenced with statewide Megan law data guides, registered sex offenders, and that participants sign written agreements about rule compliance. Such rules would include parking limited to between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m., registering with an SOS case manager, that vehicles be occupied solely by individuals or family members, no RVS, and that no drugs, alcohol, outside vehicle smoking, food preparation, are prohibited, as is littering and loitering. All of those are not happening. All of those are being broken. Every single one of them. My 3-year-old daughter got catcalled by people there. That's disgusting. It made me so mad. But I'm not going to fight. And there was electrical cords coming out of cars. There's no way that these are being patrolled during the day. On the weekends, you cannot go there. Possibly, the officers are going to know when there's games. That's great. But what about if I want to bring my girl there to practice soccer? There's nothing that we can do. And if you can't prosecute no camping ordinance, if there's no shelters that are available, what if they don't follow the rules of the shelter? What happens then? Can you still prosecute them for camping outside because they're not following the rules? The first time that it was taken away, or that they didn't go for it in 2017, I have it here, but it's gone away and my time's almost up. It was, I believe it was you, Kathy, said this in the newspaper that, I'm so sorry, that they didn't want to follow the regulations because 7 a.m. was too early for them to leave, and that they didn't want to be drug tested. Sorry, thank you, that's my time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
council members and members on several committees, and also Supervisor Warner. I would just like to commend you on the process for this evening. I am Lori Gallion, former council member and mayor for the city of Sonoma. This is an issue, I started in 2008. This is an issue that continued through 2016 in our community, talking about homeless. I have been a staunch supporter of SOS and their policies. I know there is an open door with Kathy King as far as discussing any of the rules and regulations concerning how the Haven and also SOS is operating. I think the question is that this is really opened up sunshine, this unfortunate event or circumstance. It has opened up sunshine to our community about real issues that are happening in other cities as a result of homelessness as well. If you were to go to Sacramento, if you were to read things in New York City, if you were to go in other cities within the state of California, this is a huge issue. We've been given dollars to study the program. We've been given dollars to help the program. The question is, it is no longer time to talk. It is time to act, build our committees and our structure, along with our protections to safeguard everyone who lives in the city, around the city. To that end, I am more than willing to throw my support in any particular manner. The biggest question you have to answer tonight is, what if there is no ball field for any of the students or people who wish to play because security cannot be installed? Or what happens if we no longer have the Haven or SOS that supports this particular issue in our community?
Thank you, Lori.
Hi, my name is Alexia Evoy. I'm from Shaver, and I'm the field ordinance. We've been practicing and playing at Hope Dreams since we were 6 years old. One of the reasons why we think that homeless have become a problem for Hope Dreams is because of alcohol and smoking, and they leave their trash, and there's been feces, and we've seen needles, and the bathrooms are trash if we leave them unlocked for them to use, to the point where we can't really even leave them unlocked anymore, and we have to have our coaches bring the keys and take us to the bathroom because we don't feel safe walking there by ourselves. I feel that since the police station is right next to the Field of Dreams, that we should feel safe and not have to worry about homeless and like smoking and being around all of that. Their actions really affect everyone, not just us, but the community, and it's really taking a toll. So it would be big help if there could be like more security, because when you talk about security, I've never seen anyone there. So it would make a big difference if there actually was someone there.
And we've had things stolen from our sheds, like we've had a speaker stolen this evening, or last evening, and we had it locked.
Our parents don't feel safe if they're not there with us at practice, and they can't like drop us off anymore and just like leave. So they stay with us during practice and they walk us down there just to make sure that nothing happens to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Rose.
Good evening, council and city staff. Fred Oliva. I live on 8th Street East. And I've been to a lot of public meetings and seen a lot of different public issues come, and this has all the characteristics of what they call right versus right ethical conflict. And everyone's got a point, and so it really doesn't serve to move the process forward if everyone just sticks to one point and never listens to the other. So I think that we've heard a lot of messages tonight of people wanting to listen to each other and about the scope of the problem. And so I think that the city council and Mayor Harvey is cutting just the right type of approach to this, to look at all sides of the issue and look for a way forward. I think of the book John Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath, and it always really struck me that here you have people who through circumstance of life, had to move somewhere else, and they got run out of every town they went to. There was vagrancy laws, they couldn't sleep anywhere, run out of town. And nobody wants the homeless anywhere near them. So if you move them from Field of Dreams, there's no place for them to go. So that's the whole issue here is of where to put them. Because everybody wants to help, but nobody wants them anywhere near them. And so I think that you're going to find that there is going to be a NIMBY problem wherever you decide to move them, and there won't be any good place. There's kids everywhere. It's the same thing with cannabis stores. They go, oh, my kids are going to walk by the cannabis store. Well, the kids walk by bars, they walk by the plaza, they walk by adults here with nice fancy glasses of wine. What about that kind of drinking? You know, Sonoma is fancy drinking, but as soon as you put a Colt 45, that's
Thank you, Fred.
Okay.
So can you repeat your name? Sorry.
Colton Kramer.
Thank you, Colton.
I've been coaching the Field of Dreams for the last 4 years. And I think what I'm most concerned about is not necessarily what safety represents. I think what concerns me is you're allowing kids to see a world that they're not mature enough to kind of understand. And when I'm coaching out there, and I see needles and I see kids that are building urine with PCs and you see homeless that have sort of a mental illness going on. They're not taking care of themselves. And kind of opens up the question is how long is it going to take before somebody ODs out on the field? So my question is why are we settling for homeless to live out of their cars in a parking lot? Why aren't we doing enough for them to give them more resources like Safe Haven? To provide more resources, maybe more beds, to more nonprofit organizations. Why are we putting a Band-Aid on, I don't know, something that is hemorrhaging? Because I don't think it's, it's not an ideal location. And I can empathize with, the homeless issue, and people do abide by the rules. There is, but the present plan that is in place, no one's really abiding by that plan currently. So why aren't we going in a different direction?
Thank you very much, Colton.
Good evening, my name is Jennifer Blackwood. I live on Linda Drive. I've lived in Sonoma for 15 years. I am a safety and empowerment professional. I am with Kid Power, Team Power, Full Power. I am the individual that was featured in the article in the IT about safety. My bias is obviously towards safety and youth. I'm also an educator of teen services, and I'm a certified sexual assault peer counselor. Some people in this room have reached out to me for workshops, some people sitting right here at the table. So I am not jaded toward homeless. I have great compassion. I have a family member who is homeless due to his mental illness. He died last year. So I don't have a vendetta against anyone who's homeless. They should not be criminalized. The recent attempted rape of the female teen on the nearby bike path was perpetrated by a homeless individual. Now, it's not fair to say that all homeless people do this, of course. The 5 felony rape of another teen girl in early January was at the hands of a resident of Sonoma. So those who sexually harass, batter, and or assault others do come from all walks of life and residency, as we know. The stats of the homeless, according to the 2019 homeless census, reports that 38% of them use drugs or alcohol, 25% are with psychiatric or emotional conditions, and 25% of them suffer from PTSD. These stats don't foretell being a perpetrator, sexual perpetrator or otherwise, but those who have issues will tend to act out more, like we know. The amount of individuals that are now parked, or their friends, or the people who congregate, have these stats attached to them as well. Regardless of how these people became homeless or the abuse they've suffered that has contributed to their mental illness, we have that many more adults that are displaying this and are bothering our youth. The fact that these girls and teens don't feel safe walking to practice is unacceptable. What do we protect more? Who do we value? Homeless, yes. Our youth are no match for homeless.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is John Corsi. I'm the father, coach, vice president of the Softball Association. As a father, I'll start off. I wouldn't want my daughter to go to that. But even this weekend, that's just been starting to clean up. Over the weekend, my daughter's like, I'm going to go run in the field. No, you're staying with me. As a coach, my responsibility is the safety of these girls. As a vice president, it's the safety of these girls. And I'm getting emails from parents about the homeless, just different things that are going on. I got an email about the homeless guy getting out of the car with only a t-shirt on, no pants. Thank God this happened before our softball season started. Then we get, I got another email that they're smoking dope right next to our Mary's Field. And I have two underage, 8 and under teams that are playing on Mary's Field. And that smoke is going across. I got calls from coaches, I got calls from parents. This is unacceptable. We're adults here. These kids need to be protected regardless. I'm not saying anything. I think the Haven program is a great program. It's just in the wrong location. You don't put homeless parking when next to kids and they're playing. I understand that they're supposed to be leaving at 9, and if they're in the program until 1 o'clock. Well, if you go over there any during the time, you would notice that they were always parked there. I was there just over the weekend again. Same thing. I was with my daughter. I could smell urine while I'm putting stuff on. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Jackie, I'm a volunteer and organizer for SFS. Today I feel very sad. I never seen in Sonoma here, looks like we divided by 2 parts. And also it reminds me that 10 years ago I made a wrong decision. The first time when I stepped into SOS, I saw the sign that is kind of okay idea because English is my second language. I treated Haven at that time as a help. I feel like chill. I said, wow, this is a nice name. This kind of language mistake followed me a couple of years. And finally, I realized it. So they ended push me and encourage me and work for this wonderful organization almost second. And today we mentioned about, I'm the father of kids, 2 kids, adopted kids. I fully understand. All the information they passed over, some of them I never heard, and the kids I was, so that we need to improve our management. Number 1. Number 2, and also we need to put more investment. How difficult, how much in a hardship for the Kathy King work. She worked in multiple positions. And also, I request the City Council work with the county, revisit our contract with the county sheriff. We need more people. We spend $5 million. That is 25% of our general fund from our small city. They should support us.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Ransom. I live in Santa Rosa. I go to churches, Synonymous, the Anonymous, Sonoma United Methodist Church. I'm a member of the Sonoma Valley Housing Group as well. Our church got involved in housing when people in the church began to go homeless. And that's not stopping. I should also say that I live behind the Field of Dreams in Santa Rosa. And I played in the Field of Dreams in Buffalo, New York, and Waynesboro, Virginia, so I understand that part of it too. I think that there's suggestions in the IT are good suggestions. We heard it from him on Sunday at the housing group. Support that, and I would like to.
Please address the council, David. Thank you. Please address the council.
Okay. I'd like to put this in the context. And the context is the larger problem. This is a symptom, and it's a symptom we have to take care of because it's happening now. But we have to take care of the larger problem in order for this sort of thing not to continue and get worse. And it is getting worse. I have to explain that, and it certainly is causing difficulties for the teams. There's another aspect of this too that I'd like to put in context. We had a serial rapist in this town in St. Francis, and we are not asking the church to leave or the fathers to get out. We have had 1, 2, 3 serial rapists at the Hannah Boyce Center, and we are not trying to get them to shut down. So this is a thing that we need to take care of in that respect. I want to say one other thing, that is, and it's a hard thing to say. When's that?
That's the time's up.
And my time's up, okay.
Thank you for your comments, David. I appreciate it.
My name is Reverend Rob Gertson. I'm the pastor of Sonoma Alliance Church. We have lived in this community, been part of it for 28 years. By way of introduction, I'd like to say that I was homeless for 3 years. I remember what it was like to break a garden hose open and wash hair when I had hair. I think I speak from both sides of this camp. I've been homeless. I've had a daughter who was a victim of sexual violence. And I don't think anyone in this room it has anything other than the safety of our children is of utmost importance. But I'm hearing a lot of things tonight about the smell of urine, cigarette butts, hypodermic needles, alcoholism. Imagine how hopeless you would feel if you had no home, if you were living out in the elements. I remember what that felt like. And I remember how invisible I felt and how vulnerable and frightened I felt. We at Sonoma Alliance have hosted the winter shelter, had the blessing to have the winter shelter now for 5 years. In that time, we have seen it as a congregation of the most common, simple logic, and that is find people that are cold and wet and give them warm and dry. I don't know, I keep hearing about more resources. We spent a year last year struggling to keep our winter shelter open with people filming us, taking pictures of us, looking at our windows as we were having services. We're here. We want to serve this community. I would like to say, let's divert more resources to this issue. Let's lock arms together as a community. We want these people to be respected and helped. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Robert.
Good evening. My name is Katarina Landry. I am coming to you as a parent, also a community member. I was born and raised in this sweet town. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I am here, and I can't believe I'm here for this reason. But I'm here to defend my children and my right in this community to feel protected. And I feel that it is not. And it is very clear to me that I'm going to stand here and say to you that there is a difference. And the difference is that there is homelessness and there is a choice to be homeless and disrespect and disregard authority and make absolutely disgusting choices that result in comments to our youth, drug use on public property, and the only fields that our children have in this town. It has been eye-opening to me to see how much money has gone into these services. I'm appalled, and I really don't know what to say. It felt as if the opening statements as a parent coming in here were that of hear us out. I am here because a young member of our community was almost assaulted on the night count. It's unacceptable. Why are we even talking about sustainability? It's not sustainable. It's not working. You need to come up with another solution. I do believe that the safe haven has potential, but the choice was made years ago, and it was the wrong choice. It should have never been put in this place. I ask you, please, to make the decision and take into consideration our youth. You have a duty to do that. This is not just about our homeless population. It is about our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Deborah DiMartini. I want to say thank you. Everybody here sitting here today is truly amazing. We have a wonderful group of people as well as a very loving community in Sonoma. We are a family. Everybody in Sonoma belongs here. We embrace each other. I don't see a huge diversity in here. I see what we consider a safety issue. Although at its inception, the police department might have been the best location to put this. But with that said, we're talking about a path that runs from Highway 12 up into the cemetery. With that said, it's heavily used. It's not only the Fields of Dreams used by children, but it's the walking path. I use that walking path on a regular basis. And I'm probably one of the first adults who will stand before you today and say, yes, I've been accosted by people sitting or sleeping on the bench right outside by the corner of the Field of Dreams. With that said, we are people. We do not know each other's story, and it is not my place to make a decision one way or another, but embrace the fact that we are all people. We are working towards the same means. But I honestly believe that what our issue here today is maybe the location of where it's at. I think we have a phenomenal organization set up. They're doing a fantastic job. We have passionate people sitting before us in front of the stage, and we have an audience full of loving, caring individuals. And I think that we can get past this. It's just deciding that having the location may not be the best place on a heavily used path. As these individuals transition through their life, they probably don't like the fact that they might be on the microscope of people passing through that path. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Gary Germano. I've been in Sonoma since 2001. I want to thank you specifically for having this meeting tonight and bringing your whole staff here with you to fill us in on the problems. I'm listening to all this without an interest. My daughter's grown up and not here. But what I want to say is, I think we're boiling down to a problem of law, order, and rules. And when you have, what I'm hearing tonight, it is something that really saddens me. One of the speakers was excellent and said, was naming off percentages of the different types of help that homeless people need. And the bottom line is, you can't put people who are just lost their homes and need a place to stay till they get back on their feet, with people who are drug abusers and have and are sexual offenders. They have to be separated into their own groups. And this not being able to vet people is causing a huge problem. Now, there may be a court case where they have, and they decided that it went one way, and it was the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But that makes no sense whatsoever, and it totally spoils the whole program of helping everybody, because we're sitting here scrambling where to put something because we don't know what to do about it. So what I'm saying is, it has to be appealed to a higher court. If you vet people and you get all the right people in the right place, you're right next to the police station. I don't know how much safer supposedly you can get, but we have a law and order problem. It's not necessarily, you know, I can agree that all these converging here is a problem, but it might not be if it wasn't for the fact that we can't vet people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Judith Walsh. I am on board of SOS, so you oversight, give their signs if you want. I want to speak just about location. A lot of people have said, we support the homeless, we support the Haven programs, but the Haven isn't the right place. Now, as a member of the board of SOS, I participated in some meetings with the city and county, separately and together. And in some of those meetings, what we had said, we would like to be able to maybe put tiny houses or sheds like they've got up at Los Gatos, do something like that. Is there any land available? The city said no. There is no land available that the city owns that is not designated for other purposes, I think was the term that was used. We've asked the county, we were told no. There's no land available in Sonoma or Sonoma Valley, except perhaps SDC, which would be great if SDC were something that could be used anytime soon. So I would say to you, I believe we're willing to explore other locations, but where are they? Where are you going to find them? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Felix Featherston, and you know, I have to say I've been following the Haven. Well, first I want to thank you all for getting together and you know, addressing the situation. I've actually been following the Haven since 2007. I moved up here part-time. And then when I started doing radio in 2012, I most certainly supported the Haven. Hot Shots sponsored my radio show, and they would give me leftover food that I would bring up there. This isn't Miss King's first rodeo with incidents, but I'm hoping that it's the last, because this is a pretty serious incident. The problem is, that I feel, is that the Haven, I'm actually impressed, Ms. Harrington, they have actually deviated from their original charter. And their original charter was overnight support, helping women in transition and need, and even families. I helped a family myself in 2007. I helped them obtain a service dog for their child who had ADD and HADD, whatever it is. They were participants of the Haven in 2007. I helped them find a service dog, and I helped them find an alternative doctor who got their child on potassium instead of pharmaceuticals that weren't working. I'm familiar with what goes on down there. I know people who have signed up for bunk beds. They've been promised housing for a year and a half. You want an upper bunk or a bottom bunk? Where are the bunks? They deviated from their charter. The day program isn't working. They're attracting the problem, exacerbating it. I appreciate what Ms. King has done, and I would like her to continue her good works. But the Haven has outgrown its location. And it deviated from its original charter without permission from the city of Sonoma. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Barnett, and I'm a supporter of SOS, a volunteer at SOS, and for a while an employee of SOS. And the first comment I would like to make is I started counting how many problems, related but separate problems, were being brought up as people spoke. Everything from their fear based on actual experiences they've had by themselves to what were clearly a set of rumors and misinformation that have been passed on in whatever way, that simply is misinformation. For example, people can be vetted and are vetted at the Haven, and we can check Megan's Law and have checked Megan's Law. So that is a piece of misinformation that gets spread around and becomes part of the mythology and part of the conflict that develops within the community because people aren't careful about finding out whether they know what they're really talking about. So that's the first comment I want to make. These conversations with people go much better if you can at least agree to try to find out what the truth about something is, what the facts are. It may not be very popular these days, but they're actually quite useful. Secondly, I want to make a comment as a mother and more particularly a grandmother. I have a granddaughter who lives in Sonoma, and I have 2 grandchildren who live in the city. When I go to visit my grandchildren in the city and I take them various places, I almost always run into blocks where there are needles, feces, people sleeping on the street. I think it's a fantasy to think that we can protect our children from all of these kinds of experiences. You can try, but I just walked down a block I used to walk down 20 years ago that was just fine, and all of a sudden there were needles there. So I think there are other ways to think about how to help our children with the way that the world is, not the way that we would like it to be, because we can't protect them from everything. Now, I'm not saying that...
Thank you, Norma.
And the last thing is, please, if somebody is homeless, they do not, it should have not be called homeless because they assaulted somebody.
Thank you, Norma.
So, Mario Castillo, I'm a resident of the Great Area of Rana. I'm a father. I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old son. So I was one of the, I think that I was one of those people that the original, the founder for SOS, I was one of those beneficiaries, Elizabeth Kent. A lot of you may remember who she was. I stood at the location of the labor gathered, the Boys Outstream. And so I just wanted you to know that, we should be thinking of Elizabeth tonight. But I also wanted to share with you guys what I do as a parent. We don't travel a lot. We don't have a lot of money. So sometimes when we go to LA, and I have taken my kids to Disneyland, I purposely, it's also due to money, but we stay in hotels that are not close to Disneyland. We purposely stay in hotels where people like me live, where people who don't have a lot of money live. And my kids are always shocked to see people homeless and to see people who look like us. And I'm like, that's the kind of people that I want them to really custom with, because that's the reality that we live. That goes along with what Norma was saying. As I was listening to all these people with their children and talking about their children's safety, I could identify as a parent. But I also thought about something else. What are they teaching these kids? What are we as a society are teaching these kids? I know that I want to teach my kids, about social inequities. I know that I want to teach my kids about justice.
Thank you, Mario.
About that too?
Thank you, Mario.
Good evening to all board members, city employees, and our community. My name is Elena Alioto, and I have worked at the Haven as social worker, case manager for the last 5 years. Homelessness has become more prevalent, yes. And I'm really thankful in a way that this has come up
in order to bring us all together, because I too believe, as Judith Walsh stated and Norma Barnett stated, that we need to come together to find a better solution, a location, and it has certainly brought together more and more our relationship with the police department. I just want everyone to know that I do vet people, and with this unfortunate situation, the groping of this dear teenager occurred on a Thursday. I had no knowledge of it, just so you know the background. And then this person was inappropriate with a woman in the Haven on Friday. On Friday, I immediately looked him up on Megan's List law. He had been in winter shelter, so I had not looked him up previously. He's not on Megan's law. And in fact, he won't be on Megan's law. The chief of police told me, because he won't be convicted of the crime of rape. So we do all we can, but there are things that are going to happen, and I will fight for the children fiercely as a mother, and I'll also fight for the underdog.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Annie Fernandez, and I've been working with the homeless for about 6 or 7 years now. And most recently, I've been working with the Homeless Action Committee in Santa Rosa, and they have recently authorized me to open a chapter in Sonoma. Homeless Action is an advocacy group, and it's where we need to go. It's like to move forward. It's about education, it's about mentoring, it's about knowing who these people are in the homeless community, and it's finding real solutions. I worked with the Haven for a while, doing volunteer work, and it's a wonderful organization. I can't begin to tell you how good it is and what good work Kathy King does. But we need to have an advocacy program going that will deal with getting these people housed. A third of the homeless are working homeless, a third of them are elderly, they're economic homeless. The price of housing has far exceeded incomes, as we all know, and it's time we did something about it as a community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and the visiting county folks. Thank you for doing this. My name is Erica Urkelana. I've been blessed to live in Sonoma since 1985. Raised a daughter here as a single woman. Thank you to the sheriffs. I still don't lock my door after 30 plus years. I've owned a couple properties around town and know the different areas pretty well. My parents moved here to be with us in 1988. My father, Seymour Lenz, is a founding member of SOS, and yes, in fact, before it was chartered, they did take that equipment, and they worked with Norman Krug and some of the other hoteliers to take me when they were in trouble. As it has evolved, and we're talking about it today. My father, Cy Lenz, is also a Paso Alcalde, and is also involved with Kiwanis that built the Field of Dreams, and a founding member of La Luz. And I called him about this meeting. He's now 89, looking very happy and busy in Sonoma. He said that Sonoma is a wonderful community because it's not a gated country club. We can't choose. We have lovely organizations like FISH and the Image House and so many others. Being a single woman, obviously safety is a consideration, and having raised a single daughter who played on all the sporting teams as well, I totally feel what's going on. But I think, aside from needing more housing and other alternatives, it's a matter of enforcement of the bad behavior, because the folks that are homeless, I could be one step away. I have had FISH help me, I've had Meals on Wheels help me when I had health problems. We are a community, we're not a country club. We can't move the homeless where we can't see them. We just need to enforce the rules that Kathy has put into place and how, the SOS and how it operates. And I think it is a matter of safety that the police are near and can guard. And hopefully they'll watch over all the sports teams more frequently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erica. All right. Anyone else for public comment? One more?
Hi, I'm Sean Mahoney. I live on the block. I share about 100 yards of property lines with the church. And a couple of sort of suggestions here. I'm confused as to what the vetting process is, what low barrier means, and whether it can be exited, I guess is the term, from this program. Then obviously the barrier isn't so low that anyone can be part of it. I've been confused about this for well over a year because we did go to a meeting with Patty, Susan Gora, well over a year ago when I understand now this has been going on for 5 years. We never received notice that it was going to happen. Eventually we learned that it was happening. And one of my questions at that meeting was, what is the screening process? People are not homeless and have a home and are a sex offender, perhaps, they have to register. But there are people staying right on this property line. I have a 10 and 11-year-old boy, and they have a fence between us. But as they're shooting basketballs across, they're all been in the church to retrieve them. The church has been fine, everything's good as far as neighbors. But we did ask, and well, Kathy and Susan, I asked for as much clarification as I could get on the screening process. How do you determine who is there? And I was promised to get a lot of information, or get some information, or get anything. And I never got it. And our neighbors who were up earlier speaking about seeing the suspect looking at their daughter, they called and they didn't get a very good response. I asked at that meeting before, if there is an issue, who do we talk to? How do we deal with it immediately as it's happening? And I was told I would get information on who to contact and who was involved in that. And we didn't get it. So I would ask, just one, if I can make one request. If we can figure out what went wrong in this one specific incident, it may help address the overall problems. I don't know.
Thank you, Sean.
What went wrong, and I'd like to know.
Thank you, Sean. All right. Bring it on. Let's do it.
See, my name is Thomas Lipka, and I live in Northfield a lot. I've been in my son years ago played the Philippines. I remember when it was being built. And it was built on the premise of an old movie, a silly movie about build it and they will come. Well, it's the same with the homeless. I guarantee every one of you, more homeless you help, the more homeless you're going to get. Second, you can talk all night, but everything you do to try to help the homeless or opportunistic people, you're just going to get more people. They're going to come from everywhere. And they're going to say, Sonoma's a great place, the city council loves them, the town's friendly, they got all these people paying them to help them. We don't want to come here, we don't want to live here, we want to hang out there. Well, let's go have a beer at Sonoma. So that's where we're headed. It's your fault. The other thing I'm very suspicious about, because I've been reading about the Joe Road Trail and the applications, is follow the money. What's going on with all these advocacy groups? How much money are they actually making? Okay, they're not profit. How much is Miss Kate make? Why didn't she come out and tell us how much money she personally makes? I want to know what.
I'm not gonna. Let's.
All right.
Let's not attack anybody.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
I truly believe if you want to help the homeless, learn about tough love and learn about self-respect, and that'll do a lot more than you understand.
Thank you, Tom. All right. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll bring it back to the council. First, do we have some questions that we want answered? I definitely heard the last bit, some questions on vetting process. If we could have that answered, I think that would be really important. Or if that's something we
so
could...
there's a few questions, so I'm going to turn to, first question was kind of the one, so I'm going to start kind of at the top with my list. So first there was a question about, is there a map of the time and place of issues? And there is not kind of a map in that way. There was another question about what happens if someone doesn't follow the rule of the shelter. So maybe if Kathy King or someone could talk through that one. And
let's try to keep these answers short so we can get to council comments. I think there's, we're starting to lose people and people want to hear what we have to say too.
The question is, what happens if someone doesn't obey the rules? We enforce the rules. They get if it's misdemeanor or somebody that's, mouthing off or not appropriate, they get a pink slip and they get a 48-hour out, and they can come back in once. And if they break the rule again, then they are asked to leave, and they will not be allowed services at any of the winter shelter, nor of the day services, nor in the park. So they are then banned from coming back for services.
I just want to add to that when we had the behavior of this gentleman, an appropriate gentleman, I exited him permanently on Friday for his inappropriate behavior, not knowing his behavior on Thursday, his terrible behavior, despicable. And then on Saturday, he was arrested. The chief of police and Kathy King and myself have agreed that if a transient person has been arrested for whatever reason, we will hear from the police. And if someone has been exited permanently from the Haven, they will hear from us. So now there's this two-way street going from this point forward.
Thank you.
The other question, the last question I have was really, I think, more focused on the Watma Winter Shelter, and this is a question for the county in terms of vetting, and probably also with SOS, and maybe start with SOS if you want to speak to that, and how does vetting occur there, and then if Barbie wants to speak.
When we accept the money from the county, we are not allowed to vet on water. We can't, the barrier is low in the winter shelter. So in accepting the county money, that people that are in the winter shelter are not vetted because it's against the lower barrier rules of the county. So I'm not sure if Barbie wants to.
No, just to add that the goal of winter shelters is to bring people in and meet them where they're at. And so that is part of the requirements, trying to protect the health and safety of those individuals that are out on the street during the winter months when the weather is really bad in terms of risk for their health and well-being.
Does vetting include situations like Megan's Law List? You do not vet on that as well?
Not to my knowledge.
For winter shelter only?
For winter shelter.
Okay.
However, we vet on Megan's Law for safe parking and for day plans as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's move to council member comments. I appreciate the questions and the answers there. Anybody like to make a comment?
I have just a couple of comments. Thank you, first of all, for coming out this evening. I appreciate the mayor suggesting this, and it's probably time that we got into this. I was with the city manager, Chief Rodriguez, and others from the Field of Dreams. So we went through 9 points that we brought up. Some of them had to do with what you're asking for. So I think we'll be able to move forward. Those are initial needs, not long-term needs. Some of them are, they're initial needs, which I think are important. They felt very comfortable with hearing those. The other thing, in October 2019, I believe, we, the council, a collection of us, voted for the safe parking program, but there's been some misunderstanding. David Cook, however, did not vote for this, and the reason he didn't, because he perceived that this program would get larger and that we would not be prepared for what would come. So he's been misquoted a few times, so I thought it would be very important for you all to know that. That doesn't mean he's not supportive of the shelter. That's not what it meant. He was just concerned about the future. I'm really happy that so many people got up to speak. I think it's really a wonderful opportunity. And I think it was something that we needed to hear as council members, because having a son myself, very young, he was very involved with sports, and I think I would have felt just as terrified as you all have been. So we have the issue for me is, you know, the city of San Francisco throws millions of dollars to this issue. They haven't solved it. Our problem here, I have felt, I've been personally involved with homeless people, a homeless relative. There's an organization in San Francisco, it's called Health Right 360. The county is trying to do something similar, but this low barrier where you have to bring in drug addicts, alcoholics, and mentally ill people is not working. Health Right 360 has 3 levels. They bring people in with all of those problems, and they work their way up through the system, and they are also given the care that they need. The second part of that system is they're more controlled, they're moving up. And the third part of that system, they actually are either sober, clean, getting services for mental illness, and many times being able to be employed. We don't do this here. I'm sure it costs millions of dollars. I'm just really disappointed in our system, how it operates, and I apologize. I feel very bad. I don't have the answer, but I know that when I heard the Field of Dreams this morning, I really feel that there's more to this issue than we were aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harrington.
Well, is that on? You know, I'm coming at this issue, I did have a lot of concerns tonight that people would be demonized for talking about real issues, and I'm glad that that didn't happen, and I think it's good that there was acknowledgement on all sides that this is something we have to work through, and that talking about it doesn't mean you don't care about anyone. I'm also coming to this from the perspective of having 2 girls in Sonoma, a 13 and a 16-year-old who played on the field as softball players, and previously, prior to its current incarnation, I wasn't even aware that there was a homeless shelter there because there was no activity during the day. It was not as obvious as it is now, and it is so clear that the use has dramatically intensified over the last year, and that makes sense because the program has changed pretty dramatically. I was first made aware, actually by a volunteer from the Haven, that they don't have people spend the night there anymore. It isn't being used the way it was used before. It is primarily focused on day services. And that could be a good thing, but it's definitely not the same use that it used to be. And so I think it requires a lot of thought about how it would best go forward to make sure that our kids are safe. I also want to say that, you know, as a parent of girls and also as a woman, the idea that there was an attempted rape, that is like we averted something. We didn't avert anything. That kid will never be the same now that her safety has been taken away, that she was in a park and a man grabbed her and she had to fight him off and he exposed herself to him. That is a crime. That's terrible. How is that person going to regain their personal sense of safety? So I just want to say, I don't think that was minor. I don't think anything was averted. I think that kid was assaulted. And that's terrible. And that's not on Kathy King or the Haven, but it is on us as a community to say, what can we do to protect her? If we need to get additional security, if we basically have to have armed guards so that our kids can use the bathroom when they play at the ball field, we have a huge problem. And so I think that we need, number one, we don't have stakeholders representing children involved in these discussions. I think this is the first time that we've really had the voice of the parents heard here, and it's important. And those people shouldn't be dismissed. And I think a lot of times people feel like they can't talk. Tonight we had one woman, she was the only person who came to our hearing on safe parking, and when she stood up the first time, her hands were trembling because she was so scared to bring forward the concerns of other parents. So I think this meeting was really important. Going forward, I don't think, and everyone would agree, it is not an ideal location for the day services because of the intensity of the use. And yes, we need to work together. Prior to the Board of Supervisors voting against Susan Gorin 4-1, the only homeless services in the entire valley in all of Susan Gorin's district were located in the city of Sonoma next to a children's playground. And that's totally unacceptable. The county has to open up services in the valley and other locations, and not just here. And other supervisorial districts need to do their share as well. And absolutely, we need to be part of the solution, but not the only solution. And so I think forward going, we need a concrete plan about when we are moving to a new location that has the proper size and compatible use, which is not next to children. And we need to admit that having kids scared to use the bathroom in our only playing field is not something they should get used to. I don't agree with that at all. And I hope that kids don't have to get used to seeing homeless people and people sprawled out and people dying like they do in San Francisco, because it's a sick thing for people to get used to that. And I hope that I never will get used to that. So I hope that doesn't happen, because that's like a real degradation of all of our humanity. But we need a real plan about where we are moving, how there will be appropriate space, and how the work of caring for homeless people is going to be shared by other areas and not just put next to children because they don't vote.
Councilmember Cook.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Kathy King. When I was elected in 2012, the Safe Haven has been serving the needs of Sonoma. I did vote against the safe parking back 2 years ago when it was a pilot program. And I reread some of the things that were said back then by me. And it was, the Safe Haven was doing such a great job, let's not overburden it. And if you look at the proximity, and adding more issues in that area was going to create problems. This isn't Kathy King's problem. It's the county's problem. It's the city of Sonoma's problem. It's California problem. It's time that we address this. We have addiction, we have mental health, we have people that are just down on their luck. We had the wildfires in 2017. We have the perfect mix for having this just keep going further and further into a crisis. And it's there. I want to see the county step up with partners like the cities that they have, and let's start ending homelessness and not just manage it and try to enable. It's not going to happen overnight. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to see more security at the Field of Dreams. I think that that's the discussion that we need to have right away, to protect our youth. And even back when the pilot program started, one of the things I stated, nobody deserves to live in a car. We were so desensitized by thinking that a car is good enough for a human being. These people need housing. We need to fix these problems. So about 2 months ago, I dropped my daughter off. I have 4 children at the Field of Dreams. I called the city manager and I said, I'm watching the infractions happen here. We have a no smoking law. We have this, we have that. And it was happening. We have an enforcement problem over at the Field of Dreams that we need to fix, quickly. And then move on through the points to find another site for the safe parking. And these are partnerships that we can do with the county and figure this out, how we can, solve all these problems. I'm sad by this. We deserve better. We need to get our quality of life back. And the quality of life is for us and everyone who is out there tonight that doesn't have a home. And this is not about us and them. We're all together. And I commend everybody who came tonight because I think it was very powerful to get different perspectives coming together. We can fix this, but it's going to take a lot more communication. So tonight, our direction that for myself is we need to look at security immediately at the Field of Dreams before we have another issue. And then continue the good work of on the ad hoc committee and finding out how we can help Mrs. King. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cook. Vice Mayor Hundley.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you everyone that's already left. I thought tonight was tremendously valuable, and I gained a lot hearing from all of the speakers. And this is certainly a challenging subject. It's one that I've been working on here in Sonoma for probably 4 years. A couple years ago, we noticed that things were starting to intensify, not only in Sonoma, in the Valley, in Santa Rosa, and in San Francisco. So that was when Councilmember Agramonte and I embarked on our mission to talk to the county and see if we could get them to pitch in more, considering the very close relationship between the city and the Valley, and that we're basically one metropolitan area, and really we need to be thinking about issues like this from a Sonoma Valley-wide region. Those discussions were productive. We put together this great task force of all sorts of stakeholders from the schools, from police, Field of Dreams. It had lots of meetings. And one of the things that I was hoping was going to come out of it was some sort of, plan or strategy or effort to coordinate beyond the funding allocations that were ultimately given. So while I think that a lot of good work was done back then, I was left wanting more. Another topic that has also come up in the last 4 years has been the location of the Haven. Knowing the operations that they have there and the increase of the need that we have here, the space just isn't big enough to be able to do the kinds of services that we need in our community, and even having things like office space for people to meet with caseworkers, or somewhere comfortable for people to just relax and take a nap because no one's getting good sleep. It would be even 2 years ago we were talking about a new location for the Haven. Unfortunately, it didn't get a lot of traction. It didn't have a lot of support from staff. Issue of homeless in general has not been a priority for this council up until a couple of weeks ago, but we are here now, and I am happy to be here. And while I was thinking about what this meeting was going to be like tonight, it's just such a complex problem, and sometimes it's hard to even know where to start, but I don't think it's something that we can hope to have a hand on without some sort of real strategy. So I like plans. I wrote a plan, and so I'm going to take a quick break and hand some of these out. There's less of you now, so I only have like 25 because that's all the paper I had, so maybe you could share. And I think probably if anybody wants to see it, you can request it from the city clerk as well. So I will just briefly describe it. There's a short term and a long term. The short term is that there are immediate things that need to be addressed. A lot of them were raised this evening. I think that tonight indicated that there was definitely an interest for a lot of people to work together, and I think that some people think that that some of these immediate problems are solvable. So the first thing I think we should do is put together a working group of representatives from the Field of Dreams, concerned parents, Sonoma Overnight Support, police, other interested parties to identify specific issues and propose solutions. And this is things like putting up signs with the rules, enforcing the smoking laws, having additional monitoring in the parking lot, maybe relying on private security to help us out like a lot of other cities do. And then getting into the long term, the city for a long time has had the benefit of just being able to throw this problem into the capable hands of SOS and just sit back and not really do anything. So it's gotten to a point now where the city has to be more involved, and I think it's time for the city to take a leadership role on this issue. And I think this also means putting more money into this issue. Up until now, we put $30,000 a year into the issue of homelessness. Last year, we did put $20,000 more, but it's really just a drop in the bucket for what it's going to take to really make improvements. So I think that the city needs to increase its annual allocation. I think that we need to put a big one-time money infusion in. There was a time when the city council had decided to put $500,000 into the Castellano Horse Farm. The deal went south, and so I think that there could be some cash available for that. But I'll skip to the end, and the idea is that either I'd like to partner with the county specifically to create a plan for the valley and work with them, or if that doesn't work, then I know that the rest of the cities in Sonoma County are also very concerned about this issue, and I think that the cities themselves can come together and come up with solutions and share resources and leverage ourselves to get more money. So I think there's a lot more we can do. I think what we see tonight is indicates that the city needs to do a lot more, and I am glad to hear that there are people interested in doing this, and I look forward to seeing what we can do.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hundley. So, I mean, my parents moved here from San Jose, and the reason they moved here is they wanted to raise children in a safe community, and that is the community that I grew up in, and it is something that growing up safe as a child and not feeling under threat when you're going to a softball game or a football game or a soccer game or anywhere around with your family, I think is an important thing that we should, as a community, strive to provide for our children as much as possible. And I think by and large, Sonoma is a safe community. I think our police chief does a good job. I think our city council does a good job. And I think Kathy King has worked very hard with very limited resources. We had a horrific incident that damaged that feeling of security, and we've had a series of other incidents that have made people feel unsafe at the Field of Dreams, which is a location that we as a community came together to provide safe recreational activities for our children. And I think that the problems have gone unaddressed for far too long. And in that capacity, we have not done a great job. I think that I looked at the Field of Dreams issue. I went to that area, and I was a little shocked about what I was seeing. There was a dilapidated car with a battery on the ground. There was a man whose large dog was barking at this child while it was tied up to his car, and it didn't feel safe. And so we do need to make real investments in creating that sense of safety at the Field of Dreams. We do need to be protecting our children and making sure that they feel as safe as possible. And at the same time, I do think the city of Sonoma absolutely must do its part as part of a larger whole to take care of the crisis of homelessness that is happening in our county. And it is important to note that Sonoma County has among the highest rates of homelessness in the nation, and especially in Santa Rosa. And we are dealing with this, and we need to deal with this in a better way. I think in the short term, I wrote an op-ed proposing before this meeting, I wrote an op-ed proposing a security system that we would have more visible security at the Field of Dreams. I think they should be enforcing the city's ordinances. I do not think it's incumbent for parents and coaches to be the city's ordinance enforcers. I do not think that that is what parents and coaches should be doing. I think that we as a community need to provide those services as a whole. So I would like to see that happen. I think we need to put up the signs and add some clarity as far as what the rules are there, so that nobody is unsure about what is expected of them. I appreciate the efforts of Kathy King and SOS to create better communication with the police. And again, I acknowledge that you are doing a great service to this community with very limited resources. The first time I walked through SOS, the first thing I said to Kathy was, you need a lot more to deal with what you've got. And we've heard testimony from a lot of people. I mean, people were talking about the divisiveness of this community. What I was hearing tonight was actually a lot of connection and a lot of desire to work together to find a real solution. One commenter said, with the money and the intelligence and the ideas that we have in this community, with the size of this community, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to find a good long-term solution. So in the long term, I would like to see us create some sort of larger committee that includes parents, that includes members of the Field of Dreams, that includes members of our homeless advocacy community, people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about, includes our police force, includes members of the homeless community, to come together to find a solution to this. And I do think that long term, the services provided by SOS are incompatible with the uses of a softball and baseball field. I think that what is being asked of SOS is of much higher capacity than they have at that location. And I think with the philanthropy and the money in this town and with higher contributions from the city, I do think that we can find a good solution long term. And that's what I'd like to move towards. I think that we need to be looking at how do we in the short term make people feel safe in that environment, and how do we in the long term move to a situation where we can provide higher quality services and we can move it to a new location. And a lot of people express that, well, every location is going to be bad. Well, every location is not going to have a children's ball field on it. There are going to be locations where we're saying, yes, people will absolutely have an issue with any location that we bring up. There will be neighbors, there will be complaints. But this is a high intensity use ball field. I walk by there regularly, and I sometimes stop and watch the softball games. They're happening regularly. I've personally played or reffed multiple soccer tournaments on that field. It's used a lot, and it's one of the few spaces that we have for children. And I think that we must find a better solution. And we won't find a perfect one, but we can certainly find a better one. So that would be my direction tonight. I think we're hearing some support for a security. I'm not sure if that's a broad council. I think, Rachel, I haven't had any time to look through your plan at all. I definitely will.
No,
And it looks like, with a quick glance, it looks like additional funding, and I absolutely agree that we need to be working with the county. This is a regional issue and one that we need to work with together. We should be working with the state. And again, this is a homelessness crisis. This is a low wage crisis. This is a high rent crisis. And solving all of those issues as a small entity like ourselves is not a task that we can handle, but we can handle our piece of it much better. And that would be my comments. Vice Mayor Hundley.
If I could add, yes, I things like adding security or even cleaning up, just I think that if we could bring together, some representatives from these groups to come up with these problems, I think that the city should take the lead in procuring some of these solutions. So I do think that we should,
and in addition,
put
this
our
morning,
money where our mouth is.
Thank you, Rachel. In addition, this morning, the Field of Dreams people gave us 9 points that they would like us to take a look at. And I think as we come back for the city council meeting, those suggestions are going to be shared with the other members of the council. Good. And so tonight, I don't think we're making decisions, we're accepting suggestions.
Yeah, tonight we're providing direction to staff to then bring forward actual actionable items that we can then go and do. And so, we as a city council, we want to lead on this. We want to provide the safety and security of our community. That's our number one task. That is our most important job. So I think we're hearing broad support for that.
Okay, so in terms of, so what I'm hearing and just kind of try to put it in a package. So we have a meeting on, where are we? February 19th, so next Wednesday. The agenda will go out Thursday or Friday. And on that one, in terms of security, we have already done some investigation of security costs, and we could bring to council kind of some proposals for at least kind of a first 30-day plan. For some immediate security, if that's an interest. So we bring that back. I also think that you already have a structure with your ad hoc, really you have an ad hoc with Councilmember Agramonte and Councilmember Cook, which is a safe parking group. So if we want to have that kind of the housing subcommittee focus on that safe parking maybe over the next 2 weeks to really kind of look at refine, and then working with Field of Dreams, working with SOS, maybe there's a few other community members, but then we pull that together and bring back any refinements or clarity. So those are some immediate things that could probably be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so that we're looking at kind of coming back the first meeting in March with kind of maybe some refinements or some other updates kind of on the safe parking interface piece, and maybe some of the other items as well. So those are some immediate thoughts. The longer term, I think we could look at scheduling kind of, again, we'll have to talk about how that gets structured, who the council might like to be involved with that. There is probably going to need to be some outside staffing assistance with that group to facilitate that. So those are just some initial thoughts, but there definitely are some actions that we could bring back to you post haste.
And in the interim, because there's going to be a lead time before we come back, decide to allocate funds for security, and then go out and hire a security firm, I'd ask the chief, is it possible that we can just have a more visible daily presence of police officers there, and maybe, you know, getting out of their cars a little bit, kind of walking around, just be a little more visible over there? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Can I just say that I would offer up switching the evening security company that we have
Kathy
to
King.
daytime, and that would be at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 6 o'clock, whatever times that we work out in the field, so that
Great.
we would do that immediately. It can happen tomorrow. And that way, then when you come up with other decisions of more security or a person, this is a car that writes stuff down. So we could do that easily.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'd like to see, and I'd like to know about the option of having the 5 parking spaces that are the city council parking spaces used as homeless parking instead of having it next to where the kids are. So I'd like to know about that. And then I'd also like to put out a call through the Interfaith Network to find out, are there any churches that would take it 1 car or 2 cars and also pitch in so that there can be safe parking at some of the churches around town?
I'm willing to give up my parking space behind City Hall. Absolutely, we should do that. That's fine. I'll just ride my bike every day then. That's good. I'm not as convinced that it's a great idea to split all the individual cars around the city. I have concerns that we're going to start a bunch of little problems. If we're going to add increased security here and move half of the vehicles behind the police station, I think that is a good initial step. Obviously, again, there need to be longer term solutions, but I wouldn't want to have them spread personally.
And could I just add one more? Thanks. It's interesting. I spoke with Kathy King. There were 9 points, and I'll pass these on to Kathy Capriola so she can share them. But a couple of things that stood out was if cars are not operable on the parking lot, they have to be towed. Yeah, the other one, dogs must have licenses and vaccinations. And I spoke to Kathy about this morning. She seemed open to all of these. The issue is not that she doesn't want to cooperate. The issue is she doesn't have staff, and you don't have money. So correct. Those are the things that keep us from really being a better program.
Totally. Yes, of course, Vice Mayor Hundley.
And I just wanted to go back for the safe parking program. You know, the whole point of it is to provide a safe place for people to park so they can sleep. I realize some people can't imagine why would we just want people to sleep in their cars, but we don't have shelter beds. There is no alternative. And, you know, some people like having their own space in their cars. So, you know, the way the program is structured, it has to be so that it is actually safe for the people who are participating, sleeping in their car. And so this idea that you could just scatter some cars around, there's a reason that they wanted to, there's a reason that the 2 women that kind of led this latest effort just started parking in that parking lot is because they were scared. So there are like data and philosophies about different strategies for support services and programs. And so I think that there's a lot of good ideas out there. I think it's just a matter of, finally having somebody who knows these in the capacity to consider here in our circumstances, and then, we can work on the things that fit with our community and they're going to make the biggest impact.
All right. Sounds good. All right, we'll close this meeting at Sonoma City Council. Thank you so much to everybody who came and commented. I really appreciate it. I think this was a very important discussion to have.